Hey there everyone! Welcome back to my channel and thanks for joining me today for another process video. This week I am sharing with you a layout that I created using mostly the Amy Tangerine Better Together collection. However, I did use one piece of pattern paper, which was my background paper, I think from the Pink Paisley C'est La Vie collection. And it's actually that paper right there with the small polka dots. They're kind of, it's kind of like a rainbow effect, which I really liked. And I'm going to play around a little bit and look at different pieces of pattern paper for my background. But in the end, I'm going to settle on that polka dot pattern. And I actually did this layout for two challenges. One of them being a challenge at Paper Issues. And it was where they do a feature on a certain collection. And they were featuring they were doing a product spotlight on the Amy Tangerine Better Together collection. And then I also used this for a challenge on for Hip Kit. And so it's kind of cool when you can make a layout work for two challenges. So anyways, I loved this strip of pattern paper that was on one of the sheets, and I knew right away that I wanted to put part of it at the bottom and part of it at the top. So I used my trimmer to cut it diagonally. And you just saw that. At first excuse me. At first I thought I was going to cut it with my scissors, but then I decided against that because I knew I would never cut it straight. So I think I'm just cutting off the branding strip now on that background piece because I am 100% sure that I'm going to use it at that point. And I'm not going to stick down the strips yet, even though I know I'm using that piece of paper. And I'm going to play around with my photo placement some. And the photo that I have on the right and right now is not going to stay on the right when all is said and done. But it's there for now. And I marked where my photos are going to be. And that is pretty much where they'll be. I just switched my photos around. But I'm going to do a little bit of mixed media. And I'm going to start with priming my paper with some white gesso. And this is gesso from Art Basics. And it's a little bit creamier than the Liquitex gesso. And it dries a little bit smoother too. And it seems just a little bit easier to write on, in my opinion. So I learned about that gesso from Wilna Furstenberg because she recommended it in one of her classes. I think it was her 16 Ways to Show Love class. So anyways, I did that with the gesso, and then after that was dry, I took out a Twinkling H2O, which if you've used shimmers, this is kind of similar to shimmers. And I did make a big order with shimmers, but I didn't have it yet. So I did have some Twinkling H2O, so I thought I would play with that. And ended up painting around the page with that, just using a water brush. And you saw like I was mixing it up right there. And I just squeeze a little bit of water in there, mix it up. And then I'm just painting and staying mostly on the gessoed area. But I did go off, some areas. But it's okay in the end. It just took longer to dry because it really saturated the paper in the areas where I didn't have the gesso. So I'm not going to have you watch me do this whole process. I will cut it off at some point and finish that up. And then I will use my heat gun because I am not a patient person and I don't want to wait for it to dry. Plus my scrappy time is precious time for me and I don't want to sit and wait and waste time. So I usually do use my heat gun even if I cut it off camera. So I did stick down those, the strips on the top and the bottom, and I sewed them down just because my paper was a little bit warped, and just took it over to my sewing machine and used some white thread on that. And here I'm just adding some Heidi Swapp Color Shine in Butter. And I don't know if you've used that color, but if you haven't, oh my goodness, it is to die for. It is just the prettiest yellow. When you put it on, it looks totally different from when it dries. But I really, really love it. And so I felt like my background wasn't shimmery quite enough. And that was one thing. Like I thought the Twinkling H2Os were going to be much shimmery, much more shimmery than they were, but they weren't. So I added the Heidi Swap color shine. I cannot talk today for some reason. Anyway, so I put my photos down again, and you can see I switched them now. And I have this stamp that I also got from the Amy Tangerine collection, and I am going to use it. And I'm just going to use black ink, and I'm going to kind of put it where it's going to show up at the top. And right there, it's the first time I cannot talk, sorry. It's the first time that I've used this stamp. So I just took an eraser, a white eraser, and rubbed it over there, over the top of it, so that the ink will adhere to it much better. And so I am going to stick that down. You'll notice I only inked the top because I only wanted the top part. And then you're going to see me drop the stamp, and boom, it's going to get on my background, and it also got on my photo. So I had to go and print out another photo so that my daughter did not have black ink across her face. And then on the bottom part, I'm going to have to cover it up where I dropped it and it got on the background. And in the end, I do cover it up pretty much all the way. So I was happy about that. And I love those acetate flowers. And that's one of the reasons why I chose this background, because I thought they really showed up nicely on the background. And I'm going to end up running them through my large Xyron machine so that the sticky is already on it. I don't have to put any glue, and it doesn't show. So I'm just going through the ephemera pack, picking out little pieces, and some of that's going to change in the end. And then I decide I want to back my photos on some pattern papers, but I'm going to go through the 6x6 pad and check out what I have there instead of using my 12x12 pieces of paper. And I do like to use 6x6 pattern papers a lot for doing the backing of my photos, because the patterns are much smaller, and when you're using square photos like these that are smaller than like a 4x6, it's really easy to do. So I found two patterns that I liked. I like that stripy pattern right there, the blue and the greenish color. So I'm going to use that for one of my photos. And then that other pattern right there, I'm going to use that one too. And of course I have it in 12x12 as well. And I love the 12x12 one, and I do want to use it for a background. And I got to find a way to do it. It's kind of bold, but I like it. Maybe I'll put some gesso on it and do a little mixed media. Who knows? But I know I watched a video recently of Missy Wooden's where she showed how to tone down bold patterns. So maybe I'll give it a shot and try it, because I really want to use that paper for a background. So I'm just mounting my one photo on the stripy pattern and my other photo on the pink and white pattern. And I will eventually use those patterns again, just as like another small layer on each photo. And kind of just getting all the placement set. And gluing that one photo down. My photo on the right, I am actually going to use some dimensional adhesive. So I'm not going to stick that one down quite yet. And I used my glue, my wet glue, on the one photo because a lot of times when you are sticking stuff down onto the gesso in a mixed media background, it sometimes will not stick well if you use just normal adhesive, like a ATG gun or any other kind of like dot runner or something like that. So there you saw, I just peeled that flower acetate off of my Xyron paper there. And so now it's stuck down and you can't tell there's any adhesive. So I love that thing. I have a small one and a big one, but the big one works really good on things like this where your shapes are a little bit awkward and are not going to go through the smaller one. So here's where I take some more pieces of those 6x6 papers, and I'm just trimming them off to add just a little extra something on each side. I tend to layer a lot more than I did in this layout, but I didn't really feel like I needed to do a whole bunch of layering here. So I just took the stripy pattern over on the right side, and I took the pink and white on the left. So the photo on the left is actually backed with the blue and green stripe paper, so I took the pink and white paper to kind of back underneath that one, and vice versa on the right side. And then once I get that stuck down, I'll probably start working more on embellishment. Yes. So there we go now, switching out. And I'm going to actually use that little camera, but I'm looking around and I'm going to check out and see what my title is going to be. I am going to use those Amy Tangerine thickers. I actually have 2 packs of those. They're so cute, and I love it when you can use those because, let's face it, it just makes it so much easier to do your title when you don't have to come up with different things and when your words are already there for you. So this is going to be family fun. So I'm going to do the family piece, and then I'm trying to figure out how to nestle that camera in, and because I am still working on making sure I cover up my boo-boo where I dropped the stamp. And I'm going to use those fun little circular thickers. And I must say, I like these much more than the other circular thickers they've had in the past. The other ones to me were bulkier. These are a little bit thinner to me and easier to stack, overlap, which is what I'm going to do with my title here, spelling out the word fun. And so I think, okay, so I'm going to stick this camera down. I put dimensional adhesive on one part, and then I have glue on the part that's going to touch my photo. And so I go to try and stick it down first and then pull off the dimensional adhesive, but I can't get it. So I just pull the whole thing up and pull that off and then stick it down. So, and now I'm going to kind of nestle my title around that. I always like it when you can kind of nestle things. It's a good feeling to me for some reason. I don't know. Sounds kind of silly. And here I am actually just cutting this acetate piece because I really just wanted the flower part of it. And I'm just going to save the rest of it to use on another layout because there's nothing wrong with it. I just didn't want the words that it had on there. So I'm going to just take that flower and use that. And I'm going to run that through my Xyron machine the same way I did with the large one. And then I'll stick it down. And then it's good to go. So that's one thing I have learned to do too is kind of think out of the box. You know, when you're kind of looking at embellishments and you see something, you can't always take it the way you see it. You can always modify it, cut it like I did with this one. And it's, you know, usable however you want to make it, I guess, if that makes any sense. So now I've got my title on there, and then I'm going to put some rub-ons on. I'm just going to do some little hearts around the page. And I know I don't show this whole process, but I'm going to cut some of these out. I'm going to put one on the lens of the camera and then just speckle some others around. And I'm going to add journaling also right underneath my title. But I'm not going to do my journaling on camera. And I think I do also add the, I have the Amy Tangerine roller stamp from this collection as well. And I use that around the page too. But other than that, that's really all I did. So I think I'm going to call that a wrap. And I should have some still photos coming up soon for you. Here we go. So thank you for joining me today, and I'll be back soon with another video.